All right. Yeah, I'll sign it up in a minute. So yeah, you're live.
Yeah, but I gotta have my phone.
I can't get it to you yet. It's gonna take a while. I have to register it here.
Where's my phone?
Let me register it real quick and I'll be ready.
All right,
But
go
you're
ahead.
already live. I put you up.
Well-
And I'll have it ready by now.
Okay. Tech is getting some things ready for me here, and he wants me to get going. So this is live from my studio, my Pigpen studio in Queens. We keep talking about moving into the city, and man, this is like I want to write a memoir for the Great Nose for Tech about his erotic experiences called Don Juan in COVID land, in Don Juan in COVID land, okay? Because he has been going wild here. I mean, he's just knocking them dead right and left, and 2 or 3 new ones in a day, I think is his record, and he won't stop. And that's why when we had these hiatuses, it's because Tech is going apeshit, But I thought, to just write about his experiences, let him dictate, and then me take it and make it into a literary masterpiece. Okay, that's one of my projects that I'm thinking about. Yeah, I'm also thinking about writing doing another Audible. I did an Audible about the last election, assuming it assumes that it results in a civil war. So I've already done this in a sense, but this would be a revision update. 4 years later, Trump loses the election, and his supporters won't accept the camel, and there's a civil war. And I've been thinking about that and getting it up on Audible. In the meantime, you can listen to the last one. I think it's like a half hour long, and it's got a war against the United Nations, and it's really fun. Let me reinforce now exactly what I am trying to accomplish in this writer's workshop. You have paid me $10. If you don't feel that you got $10 worth, I don't want your money. I want you to contact, go on the website and get your $10 back, which will happen summarily, and try another one. And we'll do the same thing until you're happy. I get everything ass backwards. I do everything ass backwards, and here I am ready. Here I am starting my writer's workshop, and I go online to see who else is doing a writer's workshop, and it's like 100, maybe 1,000 of them out there, and it turns out they're all academic. They're all supported by some university like UPA or Iowa, and they're all woke. So they're not teaching you to write the next Great Gatsby, see, which I'm doing, or the next Old Man in the Sea. That's what I'm teaching you to do. I want you to know that. There's no woke stuff here. You won't hear any woke stuff. I'm sort of anti-woke, I guess. So no, I'm going to teach you classical fiction. Why do you want to learn this? Okay. Well, guess how many people have read Don Quixote de la Mancha by Miguel de Cervantes. Guess how many books have been sold in the 400 years since that was published? How about 500 million? Okay. When I saw that figure, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the only thing bigger than that is the Bible, with an estimated 3 billion Bibles in circulation or sold. So imagine going to your grave knowing, that 500 million, okay, of your books, like my, I estimate that my Rossetti will go over 100 million. I'm confident it will. I'm going to read more of it to you as a didactic tool, to introduce you, to techniques and methods that I use. Yeah. So my writer's workshop. I want you to feel free to call me anytime of the day or night and to talk about your submission. You send me a 500-page novel, and I'll read it, and you're a draft of a novel, and I'll tell you, what to do, what I think you should be doing, where your weaknesses are. For example, Freedom was got Franzen on the front page. Freedom, with Oprah and the woke crowd got Jonathan Franzen on the front page of Time magazine. But that was like 10 years ago, and he has since, faded into nothingness, as Keats would say. I think of beauty as a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never fade into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep. Well, Jonathan is fading into nothingness. I ask people, have you ever heard of Freedom? No, never heard of it. But he was on the front page. They did their best to make this guy the next Hemingway, see? And he didn't have the stuff. And so he's just a joker. He's a joke. Corrections is gobbledygook. It's modernist crap. You get in the first page. You can spend a day trying to figure out what he's saying in the first page, and without footnotes, you really won't be able to do that. See, I have a philosophy of fiction, and my philosophy and of the purpose, the function of words in fiction. And my philosophy is that words must evoke a world and disappear. So you can read. You're not there to see how brilliant Franzen is. Just look at the first page. You can look at it free of Franzen's corrections. That was his first hit, and the second hit was Freedom. Then he vanished. Okay. Because there's nothing there. Okay, so read the first page of corrections and tell me if that's not a lot of gobbledygook. And it's obviously targeted at women. Any book that's targeted at a gender is not going to be any good by definition. Name one. Jane Austen didn't target her books at women, even though she's obviously speaking from a woman's perspective about the need to get married. And I love this talk about everybody. All these men have an estate valued at so many, £1,000 a year, and that was the big thing. What does his state generate in revenues in a year? This is the 18th century England. But it's a wonderful history, and it's one of the greatest novels. Okay? But it's not targeted at women. No. I don't think my Rossetti is either. All right, but Franzen's corrections and his Freedom. A critic asked, "Is this a romance novel about his freedom?" Yeah, because the main character, the main event, by my lights, I forced myself to finish it. The writing is not horrible as it is in corrections. The writing's good. The prose is good, but the content is shit. Okay. I mean, do you want to read about a woman's perspective, a middle-aged woman's perspective of cheating on her husband and about her experience of her affair? No, only women want to read about that. Why would you want to read about that? You know, how she's conflicted by what she's done, but she has exercised her freedom. You know, the title, right? Freedom. Okay. So what I'm telling you is, make your dream, your goal, your aspiration to be the next Cervantes, not to be the next Jonathan Friedman, Jonathan Franzen, to be the next Miguel de Cervantes. Make that your goal. I mean, that's my goal. You know, I want 500 million people to read my Rossetti. And I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility, because it's the most fun novel ever written. I mean, for sheer fun, not children's fun, but you know, adults' fun. It's I think it's obviously the best. It's so much fun, and I think there's a lot in it for you to learn from as young writers, which I'll talk about. Notice is supposed to be getting something together for me here, you know, so I can read something to you. And he wants to go hunting in the city. Okay, he wants me to come hunting with him. All right, so which is cool. No, I love to get the perspective of someone who's 1/3 my age. Yeah, 1/3. I've lived 3 times as long as he has. Isn't that amazing? Huh? And I'm still going hunting with him. And I'm doing better than he is, by the way. Don't tell him that. I'm a quality guy. He's a quantity guy. Hit and run artist. No, he gets some great stuff. Not stuff. They're human beings. I know that. I'm just being facetious. Okay, so I'm going to try to find Hemingway in you and bring it out. And so I want you to send, if you got something you think has some merit, do not send me something you know is bad, because if you know it's bad, you better know why it's bad. If you can't figure out why it's bad, you don't belong here. You know, I mean, you're not in first grade. You're still in preschool. Okay, and it's not ready. You're not ready to benefit from this. If you read stuff and you see it's bad, but you don't know why it's bad, see, this is not for you. You're not ready for this. You're at the preschool level, and I'm here at the postdoctoral work. We're doing postdoctoral work. I'm gonna teach. I'm gonna bring you up to snuff if you're not at the doctoral level as far as appreciation of fiction, of great fiction. I'm gonna bring you up to that level real quick. Okay. Keep in mind my motto, or my dictum. Really, it's a dictum. You know, that Thomas Mann, the Nobel laureate, the greatest German writer of the 20th century, Thomas Mann. He said, keep his words in mind. Always write them up put them on your wall. You know, a novel must delight, enliven, and entertain. Okay. See, we're not doing a manual. We're not being educators as novelists. We're being entertainers. Okay, but there's a big question there, that follows from that is, who are we entertaining? You know, we're not entertaining the J.K. Rowling's readers, the children. No. And the adults with minds of small children also. We're entertaining our peers. you wouldn't be here unless you were significantly above average in intelligence. You wouldn't be listening to me. You wouldn't find anything I have to say interesting. Okay? You guys are undoubtedly a super elite, cognitive elite. I mean, if you didn't believe that you were getting something out of my YouTubes, you wouldn't be here. See? And to get something out of my YouTubes, I think you probably need an IQ of at least probably like 120. I think the other people would run screaming. They would not appreciate what I have to say because they wouldn't be capable of even understanding what I have to say. All right, so is it enough to delight, enliven, and entertain peers? Well, how many readers are there in the world that can appreciate the first chapter of Rossetti? Yeah. My pre-med girlfriend, brilliant girl. She had trouble with, she said, technical things. She was talking about allusions to accounting and so on. And so we read it again, and next time she understood everything. So it was a little difficult for her. And she's a brilliant young woman, all A student, pre-med, taking all these difficult classes. So she had a little bit of difficulty. So, you've got to be probably 120 IQ to enjoy Rossetti. But how many people are there in the world that have 120 IQs? I mean, there's only 8 billion, you could statistically figure out, they're in the top 2%, so we're talking about 2% of 8 billion, and what is that? Is that 160 million? That's a lot of people, okay? That's 3 times 50 million, right? They're not all going to read it. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, talk back to me. Give me your, tell me when you think I'm out of my mind. I don't care. I mean, I can take it. Try the YouTube I did, reading the first chapter of Rossetti. I got 15,000 views on Watermelon Thieves. If you haven't listened to it, please go back. It's called Watermelon Thieves is in the title. And please listen to Watermelon Thieves. Okay. See, I believe that it is as good as any short fiction. It is not fiction, it's a memoir. But it could be fiction. It's as good as any short fiction, even though it's a memoir, okay? Of its length, which is like 4, book pages. Maybe 3 to 4 book pages, that's all. So it's a short story. Compare it to anything, compare it to James Joyce's Evelyn. And these are his greatest masterpieces, I think. Evelyn, The Boarding House. Is it as delightful, enlivening, entertaining, as these Araby? I think it's better than Araby. The first 2 are his best, his real bombshell short stories. Evelyn and The Boarding House. That's an assignment. You got to read those. Got to read them. Go to read some great prose, some great fiction. Man, and they're both a few pages long. And you can read them free. Dubliners. James Joyce, go online. Yeah. So while I'm waiting for Nose to get this material off the internet for me, I'll talk about our first big concern, and that is you can't make something good until you know what good is. I talked about going to these art galleries, these art exhibits, rather, painting exhibits by 20 unknown painters, and I identify 4 or 5 styles that they're painting in, and they're all trying to do something and succeeding brilliantly. But what they're trying to do is no good. But their technical skill is just polished. It's really terrific. But what they're doing is nobody's buying it, and it's not interesting. So the first thing I want you to do is read. I'll give you a handful of short things to read, okay, in the next few days, hopefully, so that you really know what's good. Okay? I think that my first chapter of Rossetti, I think that's great literature. I think that's as good as any first chapter in any novel ever written. So you can listen to that again and see and figure out what I did in that. And I think it's much better than the first chapter of Gatsby. I don't like it. You have to figure out what the hell the guy's saying, in certain areas, and that's no good. See, that's an outstanding feature of my work. I call it invisible prose. That's what I'm going to teach you to write, invisible prose. You start reading. So like I told you, Tech's got a very high IQ, and he graduated, in finance. Brilliant fucking Jew, brilliant Jew. Okay, and he reads. I give him Rossetti to read, right? And read the first chapter of this, and 10 minutes later, he's in the third chapter. His eyes are glazing over. He's in it. Well, that's what you gotta do. You gotta make people get into your stuff, and be transported. You gotta transport them to another time and place. That's your world. Every fiction has its own imaginary world. Watermelon Thieves. Wow. That pulls you into this imaginary world that I lived in, when I was 14, during the week that I harvested watermelons. And then on YouTube I tell you about this, about the context of this, and how I was 14 at the time. Summer. Must have been 110 degrees in the sun, and these kids are walking next to these old trucks, belching this heat, adding another 5 degrees to the temperature. So you've got to become a magician if you want to write fiction. I'll give you the examples of the magic. Just get into The Boarding House by James Joyce. Read it a couple times, maybe. It transports you, to turn of the century, early 20th century Dublin, and he pulls you into his world, and it's just, and his prose disappears because you're so excited about the content. You don't even see the words anymore. You're just into the content. See? And that's what I want you to learn to do as a writer. Evelyn is also great, but no, Boarding House is that's the shining star of his short fiction. You read those three I gave you, Evelyn, Boarding House, Araby, and then if you really love it, you really love Joyce, and you want to read the long short story at the end of the collection of Dubliners called The Dead. Okay? And that's very different. So I want you to read these things to get an idea of where we're trying to go in this course, in this workshop. I want you to write great fiction. I don't want you to write dribble, John Grisham. I mean, yeah, you make a lot of money, but man, I mean, well, you know, you're going to be 78 someday, like I'll be in a few months, you know? And you look at John Grisham's picture, you know? I mean, that's a picture of, well, you know, hollow man, I mean, to me. You know, his photograph on the back of his car. I mean, it's shameful. The crap he's written is absolutely shameful. The Firm, that's nothing to do with reality. I mean, what kind of lawyer was he? I bet he went right to work for the government or something. He knows nothing about what he's talking about. It's not transporting. It's just, it's pulp fiction. All this crap, Da Vinci Code. This is pulp fiction. You know, who's reading Da Vinci Code now? You know, I mean, it's hype. You know, people already have decided that they love the book. It's so exciting and it's going to be so much fun. You know, when they start reading Da Vinci Code, see, they're already hypnotized, and they're already zombies. See, we're not writing for the zombies. See, we're writing for the 120 IQs. Okay. All right. Other things I want you to read. I talked about. If you don't read anything else from read the Boarding House first. The Boarding House. If you don't like that, don't read anymore. Okay, but if you love it, then keep reading. Read Evelyn next, and then Araby third. They're both about, I think, as good. They're both as good, on the same level. They're great, some of the greatest short stories ever written. Okay, now, what else do I want you to read? Well, you can read that stuff in half an hour, I just gave you. You don't have to read The Den, but you know, it's good stuff, but you don't have to read it. But Boarding House, yes, you must. That's a must. You must read that. And if you don't like it, don't go on. Don't read Morse Joyce. Okay. I'm sort of a specialist, aren't I? I mean, I'm like, I write memoir fiction. I'm sure that Rossetti is the best memoir fiction ever written. Okay, it will be remembered as such. So I love great memoir fiction. Okay, example: Down and Out in Paris and London, which I've already talked about. All right, but if you have more time to read Paris. George Orwell's Down and Out in Paris and London. It's two books put together, have nothing to do with each other. Two long novellas. Really not that long. It's probably not. Maybe 75 pages, 100 pages long, not more. I'm just talking from memory. It could be 50 pages long. It's not a long novella, but it's just dazzling, and it's got all of the lessons I want you to learn in it. Okay, I think George Orwell is at his best as an artist in this short novella, Paris. He talks about being a starving artist, young man, eking out a livelihood, earning his crust as a plunger of dirty dishes. That's the French word for a dishwasher. And the basement kitchen of this enormous 1900 Parisian restaurant. And oh God, it's great. It's really great. So I want you to read that. That's a must. Absolute must. You've already read Old Man to Sea. That's what got Hemingway a Nobel Prize. So I want you all to write the Nobel Prize winning book, you know, your own Old Man to Sea. I don't want you guys imitating anybody's style like Hemingway's style. because I don't believe that fiction writing should have a style. Styles, a peculiar idiosyncratic style. I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, Hemingway, has a style. That is a minus. Because that deters. That is. I want invisible prose. I want words that disappear. And if they're peculiar, if they draw attention to themselves, you see, then they don't disappear. And if they draw attention to themselves, they're drawing attention away from the trance that you're supposed to put the reader in. Okay? From the evocation of the world. That's what the words are supposed to do. That and nothing else. Tech, what's going on, man?
What?
What's going on?
What do you mean?
What, you're getting me? You're bringing me my cell phone. You got this. You're supposed.
It's not working. The Amazon shut it down.
Oh, Jesus. This virus has just changed things, man. Fuck things up that always work. They don't work anymore. You work. Come on, you can do this, man. I know you can do it.
Working.
Oh, he says it's working. Okay, chill. Take a gigantic chill pill. If you want to see some bad writing, I'm talking on the YouTube, man. Nose just asked me a question. He thought I was talking to him. Okay. You want to see some bad Hemingway writing just for the fun of it? Read the beginning of Farewell to Arms. This is horrible writing. Your pages into it, and you don't know anything about it's a memoir, it's a first person narration, okay? But your pages into Farewell from Arms, you don't know who the hell is talking to you, okay? And you gradually find out that this is an American who's an ambulance driver for the Italian army in the First World War. I mean, it takes pages, and so it's annoying because you're perplexed and you're wondering what the hell is this guy doing in an Italian barracks, and what's he doing for the Italians? See, and some of the descriptive writing is, like he's got two passages where he's talking about military, the Italian army contingent thereof, going past his window, and it sounds like it's the same material, repeated. So it becomes a really great novel and a wonderful novel, one of my favorites. But it starts, I would call this problematic, and I think it's not good writing. Okay, because how can you get into it? How can you be transported to another time and place if you don't know where you are? If you don't know what's going on, okay? See, so compare that. Read those first few pages. Yeah, I want you to do that. You can go online and get this stuff free, and compare it to the first few pages of Rossetti. See, where you know a lot about the guy in the first page, an awful lot, and then you learn more and more and more, and then in the second chapter, you're going to keep learning about this guy throughout the novel, because you're going to learn things about him that he doesn't know. He finds out. Okay? Yeah, all right, so these are examples of the kind of writing I want you guys to be able to do. Which is, the very best classical fiction. Okay, I want you to learn. I want you to have the skills to do this. Now, if you use these skills to turn out women's romance novels and you become a multi-millionaire as a result, God bless you. That's cool. I mean, agree with the chairman. Let a thousand flowers blossom. All right, but I can. Nobody else online can do this. Or in these Iowa. Look what Iowa is turning out. See, I read you the woke novel. By a man who wanted to be a woman, which is cool. But I mean, that's not what I'm teaching. See, if you want to learn to write woke fiction, you go to the Iowa workshop. Of course, only 2.7% get in, so you might have a problem there. Or there's I'm sure there's 100 similar that are teaching woke fiction. Okay. Well, the other guy, the Greer, the guy that wants to be a woman in his novels, at least. Okay. The other guy, was an Indian name. He was from somewhere in the East, and he wrote absolute gobbledygook. Didn't make any sense. The first page made no sense whatsoever. They both get Pulitzer prizes. All right. Does that mean that anybody's going to read their novel? Nobody's going to read the novel. Maybe some gays will read the first one. Cool. But I mean, tell me if you ever hear these guys' names. I can't remember this. I'm Indian, but you'll never hear their names in your lifetime. They're going nowhere fast. Pulitzer Prize or not. Yeah. So you're not going to find anybody today teaching classic fiction. The skills involved, the qualities that you work towards. See. I mean, look at the qualities of the first chapter of Rossetti. I mean, I set these scenes. Of Ybor City, what's involved in setting a scene? Writing a verbal photograph, making a verbal photograph? No. It's making you feel like you're in a place. See? If you can do that with a few words, the fewer words the better. Because remember, in the best fiction, everything, every word, not every page, as in John Grisham, but every word contributes something to the plot. That's what makes it gripping. Okay? Because you're being fed content, you're being fed plot. That's it. See, if you have the storyteller gene, it's gonna be in your. No, I'm talking to them, man. If you have this in your DNA, okay, you will write great fiction. If it's as strong as it is in me, because the first chapter of Rossetti. Look at how it sets scenes. Look at how it introduces new worlds. Okay? All in the space that John Grisham takes to talk about two people in a car listening to the radio and not really telling you anything about, very little about the plot. And then he ends up telling you that the whole plot is a lie. The plot is based on a false premise that bad judges are bad apples, or they're as unusual as finding a bad apple in a barrel. They're one in hundreds, because you only need a handful of people to investigate all of the judicial complaints, with hundreds of thousands of judgments to view, to consider. Okay. Let's talk about becoming a novelist as a human being. Watch my YouTubes, because no one has ever looked at the data that I've looked at and been able to understand what it meant. For example, the 60 Minutes, Ed Bradley, the 60 Minutes host, former. It's going to be very easy. This is a real important exercise. I want you all to do this exercise. Bill Bradley's, Ed Bradley's segment, immortalized segment on the small town of Texas that prosecuted something like 40 almost all black people for selling cocaine. You can find that, Ed Bradley, Texas, cocaine busts, bang, it'll come right up. You won't have any trouble finding it. I wasn't looking for it, I found it. Okay. What does that, you understand, you're going to understand it. See, but as an author, as a fiction writer, as a Tolstoy or a Dostoevsky, you don't have to, you got to do more than understand. You got to understand what it means. I explain in my YouTube what the Wells Fargo phenomenon meant. It meant that our population is basically sociopathic. Now you want to talk about judges and the prosecutors. Okay? Do we have bad apples? 1 in 1,000, or is it pretty much universal and widespread? Okay. All right. So watch this 60 minutes. A small county, sparsely populated county in West Texas. I can't remember the name of the city, the town rather. Gets a multi-million-dollar grant. The sheriff gets a multi-million-dollar grant to eradicate drug sales in rural areas, poor rural areas, right? So he's got this grant now. If he wants it renewed, he's got to find some. He's got to make some arrests, right? He can't find any drug activity in the little town, the county seat, right? So he hires a crook, guy with a bad criminal record, to set up black people and frame them, railroad them, send them to prison.
Good idea. I like this.
Okay?
I like to set them up, but they are very bad people.
Okay. Mr. Jew is giving us some entertainment here. Okay, we gotta get this guy to come and entertain us. He's funny as hell. Okay, so this undercover agent, under contract, see, he's just a scumbag that they contracted with. He knocks on the tar paper shack. He gets somebody's name. He sees what they look like, and then he goes on his merry way. He does it again, right? He goes back to the sheriff's office. He does an affidavit saying he bought a certain amount of cocaine from that person. He does this 46 times. The sheriff then comes and arrests these people. The prosecutor prosecutes these people. And they're virtually all convicted. What's wrong with the story, with the picture? There's no cocaine. There's no cocaine in the evidence room. Everybody knows there's no cocaine. They're putting on cocaine bust cases without expert testimony that the substance purchased was cocaine. All right? You can't do that. At the close of the prosecutor's case, the defense attorney routinely files a motion to dismiss a case because it failed to produce evidence of a crime, right? When that happened, the judge, knowing that the cases were fatally flawed, and by then the whole county had known what's going on. There was no cocaine in the evidence room. There were 46 cocaine busts. Okay, so the judge now, knowing that what's going on, that there has not been any expert testifying. Yes, I examined the 100 grams of coke, and my laboratory analysis showed it was coke, and in details, right? Nothing. Okay. So why did the sheriff? Why did the judge and the prosecutor, why did they do something so heinous and criminal? Now there's, class action lawsuit going on for all these black people. They got them out of prison and so on. What was their motivation? Money. Payola. So you got to understand something about when a trial judge does something like that. He knows that the appellate judges have his back. He would not do something this outrageous unless he knew that on appeal the case would be summarily dismissed without an opinion. See, and he would he would be protected. He would not get in trouble. He would not. Well, none of them have gotten in trouble. Of course, because that's the way our system works. But here, see, now I'm being the greatest living novelist now. Ed Bradley did not understand these details. He had a very superficial understanding of what was going on. All he knew was that these black people were being framed in the railroad. Okay, he didn't understand that he didn't explain that everybody involved had to know, not just. See, you watch Ed Bradley, 60 Minutes, you think, well, the only person who knew that anything was amiss here, there was any irregularity here. The only person was the undercover agent who knew. He went and wrote an affidavit that he had bought so much cocaine from so and so, and all you would know from listening to him is that the undercover agent committed a crime. See, but all of these people committed crimes. And all right, so what does this mean to me? Okay, that the one or two judges involved, the prosecutor, these are not bad apples. There's no reason. These are randomly selected people. They just happen to be in those posts. It was a sheriff that's a crook. See?
I'm gonna go drop off my lunch.
So there's no reason to believe that they are not representative of all of our judges. Well, I happen to know they are from 34 years. I mean, if there's no big money involved, well, then you're going to get straight shooters. But there's a lot of money involved. Watch out. The likelihood of payola. I think billions of dollars, based on what I know, what I personally have experienced. Billions of dollars have to be floating, slushing around in the judicial system. Because the trial courts, they don't do something without the approval of the appellate court. I showed you the case, my trial, back 84, okay? And you gotta watch the YouTubes. I put up the decisions, and this is a case where I got a $250,000 verdict, and the highest bar assault verdict probably in history, probably even now. 35 years later, it's probably still the highest in Florida. I'm sure it is, because as a result of this case, they changed the insurance language so that it didn't cover bar assault. So who's going to file a lawsuit? The bar's just going to go out of business. All right. So I get this $240,000 judgment against Billy Jacks. You can go back and watch the YouTube. I get this $240,000 judgment against Billy Jacks Tavern and no assailant. Assailant is I sue Billy Jacks Tavern. It would be idiotic to join the assailants. For reasons I'll explain. Okay, I get the $240,000 judgment. Okay, and the only testimony in the case about the event was Hall. It's called Hall, Hall. You can. It's all online. All this stuff is online. All right, so I get Hall for his having a pull cube broken over his head, having a plate in the skull, being epileptic. This is now Deep South, 1984. I get $240,000. Right? That's millions of dollars today. Well, it would be, especially if you were talking about a verdict in the Bronx, that would be a $3-4 million verdict today in the Bronx. You can see that. I mean, that kind of injury, right? I mean, maybe 10 million. This is long ago and far away. So the insurer of Billy Jack's Tavern appeals, and the appellate court reads the transcript, which says, my client says, I was fighting in the back steps of Billy Jack's Tavern. I stood up and I saw the owner and someone who I recognized would come to buy the bar, named Spillers. Spillers had a pull cue that he brought from the bar, and he hit me over the head with a pull cue. That's the only testimony about what happened. So what the second DCA did is they set this verdict aside, and they entered judgment for Billy Jack's based on the trial transcript, in which they said that the only testimony was Spillers, the man with the pull cue, fending off an attack by my client with the pull cue. Okay. Now I have to go to the Supreme Court. I lost, right? Now I go to the Supreme Court. You read this Supreme Court decision. And you have to know the backstory. The decision is, well, the law's changed. We're going to send this back to the second DCA for reconsideration. Well, that's bullshit. The law had not changed. That law, foreseeability of injury, negligence, failing to use reasonable care, to protect someone from a foreseeable injury. Okay, here's somebody taking a pull cue out of a pull hall that says don't remove from the hall. Okay, and he's standing next to the owner with a pull cue, and he's going out there to break up the fight and see with a pull cue. How more foreseeable could you get? So anyway, the Supreme Court says go back and read this language in this new decision. Okay? Reconsider your verdict, second DCA. That's what the decision says. What happened? The Supreme Court read the decision, read the transcript of the testimony, realized that there was no testimony, no evidence whatsoever to support the second DCA's decision in setting aside the verdict, right? And they knew, well, this is payola. There's $240,000 at stake here for the insurance company. Why not pay the court $10,000? This is 84 now in the Deep South. Remember, $10,000 is like $50,000 today here. Why not pay the court $50,000 and or $10,000 in money then, and get this case reversed on appeal? And that's what the Supreme Court knew had to happen. All right, but they could not point out that the second DCA had written a decision that was not based on the transcript. They couldn't do that, right? That would discredit their own judiciary, right? So they sent it back to the second DCA, and guess what happens? I get an offer from the insurance company of $200,000. It's not my offer, it's not my case, it's my client's, and I have nothing to say about whether he takes the money or not. And of course, he jumps out. He's virtually a derelict. And I get $100,000 fee. I got 50% back then in Florida, and that was a lot of money. That was big money then. And I walked away. I never thought about the case again until this year. I decided I would put the case up, and I said, Tech, go on Netflix, get me the second DCA decision. And the decision is like one long sentence long, or one short paragraph. And it's not there. The decision has been rewritten. Now it's a long a decision with witnesses that were not witnesses in the trial. I never heard of these people. And it's all an imaginary decision, and they add Spillers as a party. And in this decision, they enter the judgment against Spillers, but not against Billy Jackson. They explain why. Because when Spillers, this is online on my YouTube. You can read these things. Okay, they explain that Spillers was partially disabled. You know, he walked with a cane, and somebody grabbed his cane and ran out back with it. Well, that's strange, isn't it? So Spillers took a pull cue to use as a cane, and he was using the pull cue as a cane to walk out the back door. That's right. That's in the second DCA decision, the fabricated one. Okay. So if you read this litigation, you don't have you have an explanation for what happened. Oh, this is why there was no judgment entered against Billy Jacks. But then it's appealed and it goes away. See? What does that imply? I mean, if our Supreme Court would do that, I mean, you think there's just, the Floridians are exceptional, unusual people, evil people, corrupt people, whereas Arkansas or Illinois, these are different kind of people. No, the country is completely homogenized. I mean, Florida, we're talking about Central Florida now, so came out of Tampa. It's like part of the Midwest, as far as the demographic, the people. You don't hear people talking with Southern accents. And you have Latins, and you have people like me. They come from the Midwest. It's funny. You go over the East Coast, and the people there tend to come from New York, New Jersey. The people in Central Florida have a tendency to be transplanted Midwesterners. So no, the country is very homogeneous. All right, so this is an example of an author understanding what something means. I looked at Wells Fargo. I didn't say, well, these 52,000 people, 52,000 Wells Fargo, these are bad people. And that's why they did what they did. No. It's a perfect sample of the American demographic of the bottom 60%. See, college degrees, impeccable resumes. They weren't hired to steal. They were hired because they were outstanding members in their community, outstanding young people. Okay, see, so that what that means is we're dealing with a demographic, American people, of sociopaths. Americans are basically sociopaths. Hopefully there are exceptions. I know there are exceptions. I'm one. Yeah, I'm not a sociopath. So that's how you become an author, by continually asking yourself the question, what does that mean? Americans don't do that. That's why I call them zombie nation. And many would be very offended by saying that, the Wells Fargo 52,000 were not a representative sample of young people in America. They'd be very upset. See, you can't. They wouldn't understand the concept of representative sample. Yeah. So I want your novels to be like mine, in that my novels are serious studies of the world. They're comical. I mean, you've already seen a little comedy in the first chapter of dry humor in the first chapter. So you get a lot more. I think it's one of its outstanding traits is its humor. I think it's very, very comedic. But at the same time, it's absolutely naturalism, realism. But I want you to go beyond being an entertainer to becoming a Charles Dickens. I mean, if you're writing about life, see, you're not going to be a Charles Dickens old man to see, you know. But if you're writing about a setting, you know, with people in it, I want you to be a Charles Dickens. I want you to. I want your novel to be a serious study of the world, okay? Which means basically that it's probing, it's full of epiphanies, things people don't know. These things make it interesting. Remember my dictum, all art must be interesting. See? And the 2 Pulitzer Prize novels, they don't even satisfy that initial criterion. If it's not interesting, it's not art. I mean, you know, T.S. Eliot said, if it's not new, it's not art. Okay, I agree. But I would also say, if it's not interesting, it's not art. And to our demographic, our 120 IQ guys, some 115 might get in. Some, but pretty much we need 120 IQs or higher. We're going to write great fiction that our demographic can appreciate. See? If other people, I mean, it's somebody interesting to see what kind of demographic I attract with Rossetti. I think that men going down to average IQs are going to read it for the boxing and the sex. But I think that to fully appreciate it, you're going to have 120 IQ or higher. Because it is a serious study of the world. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting. Tech is supposed to be getting something offline for me, and he said he's taking his laundry. He'll be right back. He said, I got 5 minutes. I don't know why I got 5 minutes. You know, what's the secret of my success? You know? Becoming a millionaire overnight as a young trial lawyer, you know, without anybody feeding me cases, anybody helping me. I guess I became the most hated man in Tampa in no time at all because of my depredations against the fair ones. Oh yeah, I was hated. All right. I remember wearing this blue suit, this shiny blue suit, and it had a interesting looking texture. It wasn't sleek, you know. It wasn't shiny. Walt. It was a very beautiful bright blue suit, and I'm in a law library working in Tampa, Ellsworth County Law Library. And this, 20-year-old secretary, law clerk, or somebody from the lawyer's office, brings in a armload of law books. And I see her. I'm going out. She's coming in. I see her as she comes into the law library through the doors. And I just take her, without saying anything, I took her books from her and walked to a table. She followed me. We sat down. We were already in love. Can you imagine how, lawyers with fat wives, ugly wives, boring wives, wives they got tired of decades before. Can you imagine what they thought of me? Oh God, they wanted to kill me. When I started on it, I was evicted by by 7 other lawyers, but 2 of them became judges from we were sharing space, and they found a watch that I had in the crevice of a couch, where I had made love, to a demoiselle, and this is a fascinating story. It's got a life lesson I want you all to learn. Spanish Joe. Okay. Spanish Joe liked me and became my friend. He was one of the guys in shared space. And they deputized him to tell me to get the fuck out, okay? And he did. In a nice way, okay? So, they found your watch. Here's your watch, Russ. And so I was evicted. Now, Spanish Joe, I was his best friend in the world, right? He should have stood up against these jerks and told them, look, Russ is young, he doesn't understand things, he's learning things. We can't evict him, No, that's what he should have said, but he didn't. All right, and I knew that, and it hurt my feelings. But you know what I did? I turned the other cheek. Always turn the other cheek. That's being a Christian, by the way. Okay? That comes from Christ. Okay? Turn the other cheek, man. You know what I got for turning the other cheek? Spanish Joe felt bad about what he'd done to me. So he was not even Spanish. It's funny. He got that nickname in law school because he had a Spanish last name, Fernandez. He can't be alive now. He's gone. Great guy. His real name was Sicilian, but he had been adopted and then changed his name to Fernandez, Spanish Joe. All right, so Spanish Joe, and this is what happens when you turn the other cheek. The person who wronged you feels guilty and wants to make amends. Well, that's what he did. He sent me, I bet you I made $100 grand back in the early 70s, very early 70s. From the cases he referred to me. I had nothing then, This was when I was going around with my hand. It took me a minute to get money out of those cases, probably a year. So you want to be a great novelist. I almost want to say you have to be a great human being, and that's not true, of course. We had great novelists that were trolls. We're not nice people, I can't think of one right now, but I'm sure we have had. You've got to, if you want to put humanity on the page, if you want people to feel the humanity of the characters, you gotta be a human being yourself. So if you need to work on that, cool, work on it. I mean, that's how I won my cases. I don't know. Only the jury knows why I won my trials, but I mean, I think that was a factor. I think that, I was like a 30-year-old Jimmy Stewart, of the Alfred Hitchcock movie, Vertigo. But I was only 30, see, and people knew I wasn't exaggerating, I wasn't lying, wasn't being a lawyer, what they think I was a lawyer. And of course, the typical lawyer thinks his job in the trial is to lie about the evidence, the closing argument, because the evidence can be against you, so you just twist it. You hope that people won't remember. And I mean, I saw that, or you exaggerate things, This person isn't hurt. Oh no, he has his broken leg grew back deformed. No, he's not hurt. He was never injured. You heard the testimony of my orthopedic surgeon. He sustained no permanent injury. The guy's leg was a Richard Lester case. The guy's foot was deviated that much when his leg healed. Okay. That's the world we live in. So the more human you become, the better an author you will be because you're writing about human beings. See, we haven't talked about that. I mean, I had a completely different format planned, and Nose is fucking up again. That's all. These are things I needed to talk about. God, see, I'm old. I get off the track, and sometimes I can't remember what I was saying. Shit happens, you know, and then shit happens and you die, yeah. God, I forgot what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, see, just as my jury's like me, because of my humanity, you can see I was a good person. Not just a nice person, but just really a good person. You can feel this about me. As people do today, you know, I mean, people are attracted to me, all walks and ages and so on. And this quality is going to make your readers like you and like your book, okay? The more human you are, see? There was an Armenian author, you don't hear about anymore, that exaggerated this and made it sort of caricature, you know, in his writing. And he was quite successful. I can't remember his name. Damn it. So we're not going to read him. Your first assignment is to familiarize yourself with great fiction, James Joyce fiction, or Paris and London, George Orwell. That's enough, you know. That's enough for 1 week. And you know, you start reading the free sample, you know, on the George Orwell. If you don't like it, don't read it, you know, because that means it's not good for you. If you can't get into it. I'll tell you who did the same kind of thing, didn't do nearly as good a job in Movable Feast. At the very beginning, you can look at that. You can read the free inside. The Movable Feast. Ernest Hemingway. He sets the scene in the first novel, and you know, he is trying to evoke, you know, Paris, 18. No, I mean it would be 1920 something. That's the First World War. Yeah, he's trying to evoke this Paris of a young journalist living hand to mouth, you know, in an apartment with his wife and his child, I think. No child, just wife, I think. But you can compare how these two great writers set their scene. I would have edited, if I had been Hemingway's Ezra Pound instead of Ezra Pound, I would have edited the first chapter of Movable Feast, the beginning. Once he starts talking about Gertrude Stein, it's great. At the very beginning, you know, I think it's successful. I think it sets the scene. And to set the scene, you need to make people. You got to pull people into the scene. They got to experience the scene. Okay. And I think he does it very well. The writing is not nearly as good as George Orwell's in the beginning of Paris. See, I'm giving you assignments that just involve reading the beginnings of things. Yeah, we're talking about setting the scene. See. So those are two. So you can compare. You can compare how how does George Orwell set a scene in the slums of Paris, 1800? How does Hemingway set his scene? How do I set my scene? Or Rossetti? Okay. My scene is, I guess I've got several venues that I'm going to inhabit. I've got Ybor City, 7th Avenue, where I drank coffee for 34 years. Visited a couple summers ago. Then you've got the Bayshore Boulevard. I had a house. Wife and I had a house for 4 years in the neighborhood of Bayshore Boulevard. In the neighborhood I'm talking about. Okay. That would have been the western edge of Bayshore Boulevard. So, after you read, here's a further assignment for you. Read some of this stuff. Just read stuff that you like. Go on and read all of Paris. It's one of my favorite reads. Or read all of the first chapter of Hemingway. But then, after you consider all of these scene settings, okay, in the beginning of novels, Movable Feast is supposed to be a novel, it's really a memoir. After you've done this, then you set a scene of an imaginary novel. Talk about a place where the novel's going to occur. Maybe even introduce a character or two if you're in the mood. And if you think it's successful, if you think it's bad, then you must know with your 120 IQ, you must know why it's bad, and then work on it. And when you think you've got something that's ready for publication, or close. If you think it's good, send it to me. I haven't looked at it myself. Noticed it last night. My website, where you take the first, you actually take the course, the writer's workshop. You become a participant, and you send me your scene. Make it like 2 pages, see, maximum. And I got my phone number there. Don't call me the next couple of days. Give me a chance to digest stuff, and then when you call me and ask me a question about your submission to me, focus on what you really want to know. Don't call me up and say, "What do you think? What did you think of this?" I said, "No, don't do that. Ask me what I thought of. Was my scene successful? Was it evocative? Was it interesting?" See? Okay. I couldn't do what I wanted to do, but what I wanted to do is going to take an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and this probably is more important than what I wanted to do, because this, I'm getting you to start thinking about what you're doing. I'm getting you to read some models, study some models, have settings, and then to do one yourself. Okay? That's probably a better idea, better place to start than what I had in mind. And sorry I had to extemporize, and but you know, shit happens. Yeah, if you think you didn't get $10 worth, I want you, and that you think that this is not for you based on what I've told you. Please, get your refund right away. We'll give it to you. Okay. See you next week, maybe Monday.